okay. A few mist and fog patches possible, but really underneath those starry skies, temperatures will be plummeting down a touch. 9-11 degrees Celsius for most of our towns and cities, but rural spots may be as low as 3 to 5 degrees Celsius, which is quite chilly for the start of July. But it does mean that to start off the new working week, there will be a decent amount of sunshine for many of us. A touch cloudy for the far north of Scotland, though, particularly for the Outer Hebrides up towards the Northern Isles. A bit of cloud and patchy rain and drizzle around. But for inland areas of Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England, quite a decent start off to Monday. We will see some showers developing later on in the morning and towards the afternoon, though. Further south, though, our attention is on this band of rain that's slowly pushing its way in from the southwest, providing light rain and drizzle for southwest England and eventually southwest Wales, central areas during the day and the afternoon. But it is going to turn increasingly cloudy, gloomy underneath all of that. Some quite brisk winds developing as well around the southwest peninsula, 30 to 35 mile-an-hour gusts. Feeling quite chilly and cool underneath that persistent cloud. Temperatures not rising much higher than 15 to 17 degrees Celsius. But further north, where you do have that sunshine, 19, 21 degrees Celsius. So feeling a touch more summery. But make the most of it, because that area of low pressure is going to start moving its way northwards. So it will turn more widely unsettled on Tuesday and Wednesday as we see this band of rain steadily pushing its way northwards. Some heavy pulses in there, maybe even some rumbles of thunder developing around at times, and actually feeling a lot more humid as well as we start feeding in some air from southern districts. It's the far north of Scotland that will stay the driest on Tuesday, but for all of us it should hopefully turn a bit drier from Thursday onwards. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£30,000 in cash has to be won. It's our biggest cash prize so far, and it could be yours. Phil was a winner. Listen to what he says about winning the Great British Giveaway.
Hi, my name's Phil Cox. I just looked at my account and thought, oh my God, yeah, it's true, it's gone into my account. And if I can win it, anybody can win it.
The next big winner could be you, with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
He fell into a coma. His family, of course, absolutely distraught. Because Turkey is outside the European Union, it therefore doesn't count under the Global Health Insurance card scheme, which means that he is liable for these costs, and the family say that he's being held there for until they pay at least half the £41,000 that is owed.
One of our viewers here saying their premium, because they have health conditions, can be as much as £1,000. But if they're going to go overseas to, as you say, a non-EU country, they still should take it. That's the message here, isn't it? Don't take the risk.
Absolutely. Now, if you do have lots of pre-existing medical conditions, or you're an older person, my lovely mother-in-law is going to be 95 this week. She's still travelling, but only within Europe, and only because the cost of insurance is going to be many times the cost of the trip. And she just thinks, OK, well, I'll get emergency medical treatment free if I'm in the European Union and I've got that GHIC card. But beyond that, absolutely not. It's not worth the risk.
You have to have your card, do you, Simon, to get treatment within the EU? You should just apply for that online.
You should certainly apply for it online. Don't go to any of the scam sites that want to charge you money for it, because it's a free card. But actually, if you haven't, it's absolutely not a huge problem. Yes, you have to go through a bit of rigmarole, or at least your family do, to sort it out. But in general, if you go to a public hospital, they will treat you first and ask questions later in the European Union. And if you're a British resident, you should get it for free. Even if you forgot to get the GHIC card, they will sort it out eventually.
Britain's election channel. GB News, the People's Channel.
Good evening. The top stories from the GB newsroom. The Home Secretary has set out the first steps towards setting up a UK border security command, which the government hopes will reduce small boat crossings in the English Channel. Work to recruit an exceptional leader will begin tomorrow, with the government preparing a bill to create counter-terror powers aimed at tackling organised immigration crime. The Home Office says the command leader is expected to be appointed within weeks and would draw together a work of intelligence agencies, police, immigration enforcement and border force. Yvette Cooper says a major upgrade in law enforcement is needed to stop the boats.
No one should be making these dangerous boat crossings. This is undermining our border security as well as having lives being put at risk. But that's why we have to have a major upgrade in law enforcement, and I have immediately started the work on that in the Home Office. That includes the recruitment of a new border security commander, the establishment of a new border security command, and also the recruitment of new cross-border police, including to work right across Europe to tackle this problem at source.
Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has met First Minister John Swinney for the first time since Labour's election win. The Prime Minister's on a UK tour as he tries to reset the relationship between Westminster and the devolved nations. The new PM will next visit Wales and Northern Ireland before meeting mayors in England. John Swinney welcomed Sir Keir to Bute House this evening for one of his first engagements after being appointed as PM. Sir Keir used talks with Mr Swinney to set the framework within which we can work better for Scotland, he said. When asked about Scottish independence, Sir Keir refused to go into detail but said they'll work together.
We were of a joint view that we can work constructively together. I'm absolutely clear that during the campaign I made a commitment that my Labour government would deliver for Scotland. That's why I'm back here. Making good on that commitment, that promise, and starting the work of change across Scotland, and took this opportunity to reset relations with the First Minister and Deputy First Minister, and we will take forward further steps to ensure that that is bedded in now.
The UK's new Defence Secretary has pledged to step up the UK's support for Ukraine on a visit to Odessa. Following a meeting with President Zelensky and his defence counterpart, John Healey announced the UK would provide a new package of support, including more artillery guns, 250,000 ammunition rounds and nearly 100 precision Brimstone missiles. The Defence Secretary also pledged to fast-track military support committed for Ukraine in April to arrive within the next 100 days. And Emma Raducanu defended her, quote, no-brainer decision to pull out of mixed doubles with Andy Murray after her Wimbledon campaign came to an end today. 21-year-old Raducanu lost in 3 sets, 6-2, 5-7 and 6-2 to qualify Lulu Sun in the 4th round. She denied former world number 1 Andy Murray a final match at the All England Club after withdrawing from their scheduled first-round mixed doubles encounter yesterday, citing a sore wrist. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. It's time for Headliners.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Tatiana, and welcome to Headliners, your look at the next day's newspapers with 3 comedians. I'm Leo Kirsten. Tonight I'm joined by Cressida Wetton and Nick Dixon, 2 comedians so good I didn't even try and make a funny little intro for you. How are you both doing?
Because we're serious people.
You're a serious person.
I feel serious when I'm with you, Nick.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's not the best thing a comedian can hear. Anyway, that's the chit-chat out of the way. Let's have a quick look at tomorrow's front pages. So the Daily Mail leads with Reeves, I'll rip up rules on planning within days. The Mirror has Chancellor, I'll make every Brit better off. The Telegraph has Labour to bring back housing targets. The Eye has Labour heading for new Brexit clash with EU on extra migrants. The Times has homes on Greenbelt in new dash for growth. And the Daily Star has Drinkle, Shrinkle, Your Winkle. And those were your front pages. And let's have a closer look at those tomorrow's front pages, starting with The Guardian. They've got coverage of the French election. We just got the results in, Cressida.
Just got them. Surprise surge for left pushes French far right into 3rd place. And of course, it's the Guardians. There's no possibility of a right, there's only a far right. So a left-wing alliance was on track to become the biggest force in the French Parliament last night after tactical voting held back the far right. So there's been a lot of this, right, you stand down and you go over there and we'll do whatever we have to do to make sure that the far right don't get in.
Yeah.
It's very chaotic. So nobody's won. Apparently they're having the Olympics soon. That features a lot in this article. So it's all like they've had a divorce, but they've got a dinner party booked and they're all trying to look like they're holding it together, but it's chaos.
Yeah, it's absolute chaos, Nick. And also, I mean, for all the you know, the French youth and the French centrists were sort of mobilising voters to get out and defeat what they call the far right, which are actually a pretty sensible party. What they've got instead is a hyper-progressive socialist bloc led by Mélenchon taking the most number of votes.
Yeah, I don't understand how that happened. I don't trust the French system. That's all I'm saying. It's got these multiple rounds. Technically, it's first past the post, but it has these multiple rounds to it. And apparently, the National Rally's still got 9.7 million compared to 5.9 for the lefties. Someone can check me on that, but I've just seen that on Twitter. So it does sound similar to ours in that the popular vote was much larger, but there's some sort of seat-based shenanigans I don't fully understand.
Well, I guess you know, in a lot of the rural areas, everybody voted for, or almost everybody voted for Le Pen. But then, you know, you can only get one seat in each seat.
Yeah, it's going to be very hard for this. We keep hearing about this populist movement, but they're going to use everything they can to stop it. You've got the EU, you've got various shenanigans, and also Macron in the centre. Do you know the alleged centre? He was so unpopular they were taking him off posters and leaflets. Did you know that?
Yeah. Well, same as the. I mean, my local candidate, the Conservative candidate leaflet came through the door. I mean, I didn't know it was a Conservative until I looked on the back and it's like tiny writing. I'm Conservative, by the way. Please don't hate me. But I mean, Mélenchon. I mean, this far left bloc. I mean, they are pretty incredibly far left, Cressida. They're essentially, you know, they want a Soviet Union but with more transsexuals and more mass immigration.
Policy, okay. But Le Pen hasn't given up. I mean, 2027 they're saying now, so it's sort of like she's saying the tide's rising, but it just hasn't risen enough.
So 2027 will be the presidential election. This is the election for the government.
Excellent.
But the president in France does have, you know, serious power. It's not just a figurehead like in Ireland.
But do you think this is a...
If they do slide into this sort of Venezuelan-style socialist economic collapse and have to eat their pets and their zoo animals, they've already got the recipes. So
yeah. I mean, a lot of people bank on that, don't they? It'll get so bad that then the right will come back. But it's a bit of a risky game because your society collapses in the meantime. But do you think it'll be like Farage? No, Farage is like going for 2029 now. Maybe Le Pen or Bardella really can come through in a few years. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it worries me because, people are always saying that it's always jam tomorrow with right-wing politics. It's always like, oh, things are going to get so bad. Things are going to get so bad that they'll have to vote for us. But really, what's going to probably happen in France is, the Overton window will shift and then Soviet-style economics. I mean, they're already talking about reducing the retirement age, which is already about, 28 in France, and they don't work very hard before then. They're talking about increasing the minimum wage, and they're talking about introducing price controls. This is the economics of insanity.
To be fair, if France was having some sort of societal collapse, how would you notice? Because everything's always on fire anyway. You know what I mean? There's constant protests, yellow vests, chaos, violence. You're like, yeah, it's just a weekend in France.
yeah. Anyway, moving on to the Times.
My new film.
What have they got in the front cover?
Oh, the Times. Oh, I thought we were going to do the Eye.
Oh, the Eye. So
I'll do the Eye. I'm just going to stick with the programme.
Do the Eye.
Yes, the Eye's got Labour heading for a new Brexit clash with EU on extra migrants. That's just what we need, extra migrants. That's what I've been asking for in my stocking. So this is Labour facing its first clash with Brussels after EU signalled it wants easier migration for young people aged 18 to 30 to come to the UK and study, live and work. Sounds a bit like the EU. To the layman, and I'm a mere layman in these matters. I mean, the EU want free movement. I've heard of that before. Like, should we chuck in a customs union and a single market? Call the whole thing the EU. Why not? So that's what's going to happen. We all know that Labour are going to inch back in, but they're going to call it something else. It won't be called the European Union. It will be called something closer to Europe. And David Lammy wants...
Labour, so it'll be New Europe.
New Europe, like new Labour, new danger, New Europe. And David Lammy wants a close relationship with Europe. Of course he does. Of course he does. So that's what we all knew that was going to happen. Yeah. The civil service are all secretly banking, not that secretly because I found out about it, on Starmer getting back into the EU, and that's what it's going to be.
Cynical. Well, they're saying it's not on the table.
No, it's on the table.
Don't you think? I mean, since with the Brexit vote, more people now wish they voted Remain. I did vote Remain. I wished I'd voted Leave, but more people now, the public perception is tilted, and so this is fair enough, isn't it?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It could well be heading back in that direction.
Yeah. OK, well, moving on. I think we've got the Times now, Cressida.
OK, homes on Greenbelt in new dash for growth. So Labour to ease building rules and fight NIMBYs. So this is their big thing, isn't it? Growth, that's the thing Labour are pushing at the moment. Labour will announce the restoration of mandatory local house building. So it's mandatory, you have to build a house. If you don't, you're going to be in big trouble. So this is like a pushback on the stuff that Gove did. I think it was last year. Michael Gove, he made some planning laws that were about levelling. It was allowing councils to ignore targets for homes if the people in that area didn't want them. And that's what Gove put in. So they're now pushing back on that and saying, no, we've got to have some house building.
Well, yeah, this isn't really fair on people. You've already bought your house, you've got a nice view, you might not want a couple of tower blocks full of, people from sub-Saharan Africa or wherever.
I don't agree with that. I hate planning laws. I think.
Yeah, but that's because you haven't bought a house yet.
That's true.
If you bought a house, you think they're great.
But there's a lot of people like me that haven't bought a house yet. No, you can't. If you own your bit of land, you own your bit of land. You can't say, and I want to own the view of that bit and that bit. That's not fair.
But the whole idea of planning, the planning permission laws, is that if someone obstructs a view or whatever, or is in your area, you have some say in that. And it's a system that that worked well for quite a few decades, Nick. And now the Labour want to rip it up.
Yes.
They also want to send. They're saying these houses that councils are going to build, they're going to send illegal immigrants or cross-channel migrants, whatever the euphemistic term is, to all boroughs in the UK. So every council is going to have to, build homes for people.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about building on the ugly parts of the Greenbelt, which is that's just England, probably. I mean, that's what I always worry about. Like Lewis, I think it was Lewis Goodall on LBC did a tweet sort of saying we could build in all. He was taking a sort of lovely trip on a train through the wonders of England. He's like, why can't we build on all this? It's like, because you're ruining the most beautiful country in the world. Yeah. But we have to build...
Like you already have in a lot of it.
Yeah, exactly. Like ruin this last bit. So I'm reluctant in that way. I'm a bit of a NIMBY in that way. But of course, at the same time, I recognise we haven't built anywhere near enough homes. But also, we brought in, of course, far too many people.
Well,
so
5 million people, I think, under the last Tory government.
So we could sort that bit first. Then probably need about 10 homes after that.
And finishing this section with the Mirror, Nick, what have they got?
Chancellor, I'll make every Brit better off, which is, of course, Rachel Reeves with her very brilliant bob and her sort of wonderful robotic ways. I mean, we need an autistic chancellor because that's who we need to... I'm not saying she's technically autistic. I'm not making that claim. But because I haven't really read the story, I'm just adding some comedic effect. No, there's nothing to read. It's just one little box. I don't know exactly what she's going to do. But she's going to have to do... She's going to, given a situation we're in, it's going to be higher taxes or austerity or really both.
I think it's going to have to be both. Because, the country's facing a financial crunch and we're not going to be able to service our state pension debt by
and she's going to close the gender pay gap that may not exist, so that's going to cost more, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, Labour are going to do that by transitioning everybody. So everybody's
I thought they were going to discourage women from bringing up their own children and going to work.
That as well. That's part of the progressive agenda. I mean, I think they might steal something from the Zimbabwean Chancellor's playbook and make everyone a trillionaire. Unfortunately, that trillion Zimbabwean lira is worth absolutely nothing. You need a wheelbarrow to buy a loaf of bread. But, everyone's still a trillionaire, got that feel-good factor, big wad in your pocket.
Yeah. No one can argue. Labour will bet we made you all trillionaires. We stopped sticking plaster politics. Everyone will be a trillionaire under Labour. It's a great tactic. It's a great policy.
Wheelbarrows of cash. That doesn't sound like the early 1930s.
It'll be fine.
Yeah. Now, here's a lovely recipe for your Labrador. Anyway, that's the front pages dealt with. But coming up, Tony Blair's advice for Keir Starmer and reform wire dogs. Find out what that is in a couple of minutes.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Prince Harry, he's been opening up about the death of his mother, Princess Diana, while speaking to the founder of armed forces charity, Scotty's Little Soldiers.
Well, the Duke of Sussex joined 50 children who were being supported by the charity and urged youngsters to open up about their grief, saying, if you suppress it forever, it will eat you away inside.
Well, let's speak to our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker, who joins us in the studio. Cameron, Prince Harry has spoken quite a lot about grief and bereavement from his mother's passing and the trauma he had. Did he say anything new that we haven't heard before?
And the difference here was, instead of kind of talking about himself, which clearly we've heard a lot of in the last 3 years from Prince Harry with his memoir Spare and the Netflix series, I could go on, he was putting the spotlight back on the charity and on Nikki and her story. So it was almost like having the old Prince Harry back, and also thinking about like what could have been if he didn't step back as a working member of the royal family.
That's so fascinating. In many ways, he was sort of stepping into his old role in this. It was sort of performing a duty that he would have done back before the days of Megxit.
It is kind of like before the days of Megxit. He's been heavily involved in the charity for a good decade now, but when he came back for the Invictus Games celebration commemorations of the 10 years of Invictus last month, he spent time with 50 or so children, and he talked about how first instinct of a child when they lose a parent in awful circumstances such as that is, I have to be really sad for the rest of my life. And he talks about how those children who've lost parents through conflict feel like that, and how actually it's okay to be happy again later on in life when you've had the support and realising that the parent you've lost would want you to be happy later on. So that's the message Prince Harry was trying to get across here.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Leo Kerr, still here with Cressida Wetton and Nick Dixon. And kicking off this section with the Times. And Tony Blair has given advice to Keir Starmer on reducing immigration. I assume he said, don't do what I did, Cressida.
Yeah, that's what he said. Tony Blair's warning to Keir Starmer on migration. So he did this piece in the Times yesterday, giving him some top tips. Like, hey, man, I've done this job. Let me give you some advice. And he's talking about fighting reform. It is sort of saying, like, oh, you've got to watch out for these outliers. You know, they're just getting away with murder. They're running riot.
Yeah, and he's saying, like, you know, there'll be a populist uprising if you don't, you know, tackle these issues.
Don't tackle these. So exactly, he's telling him to get on top of migration. He's still going on about digital ID cards. I don't really understand how that would help.
So if somebody was here illegally, they wouldn't be able to get a digital ID card. Well, they probably would under Labour, to be honest.
So then wouldn't they just be... Well, no, but that's my fear. They'd be in the same position as the person who unfortunately lost their passport.
They just couldn't get food. They'd try and use it and it wouldn't work. They're all different levels.
At that point, there'd be a kind of a sort of temporary, permanent ID card that you'd get given. Anyway, I don't know. I'm a cynic. So he's talking about that a lot. He's talking about AI. That's his vision for the future. He thinks he can save billions by bringing in AI. He thinks we've got to the end of taxing and spending. He thinks we can't do any more.
So he thinks he won't need to... He's almost hinting that he won't need to raise taxes because the public sector will make such great productivity gains from AI that we wouldn't... I mean, I can't even say it without laughing. Man, tax is going up. I don't know why he's playing that. But what Tony Blair said here is the focus should be on illegal migration, law and order, and avoiding any vulnerability on wokeism. I mean, that sounds a lot like the Reform platform. I don't know if Tony Blair is actually a secret Farage fan, but... I mean, do you think the left will do anything about illegal immigration and immigration as a whole, Nick? Because, you know, they know that people that come in, migrants that come into the country, when they're registered to vote, they overwhelmingly vote for Labour. So there's a real incentive there for Labour to tilt the electoral scales by bringing people in.
Well, I think if they listen to Blair, they will try and fix immigration, because Blair is very ruthless and understands that it's necessary. Now, yeah, the idea that ID cards are the solution is a bit convenient, given that he's been pushing ID cards for about 30 years. I mean, it's like, oh, what a coincidence, that's the answer. And the AI, I'm sceptical as well. I mean, although we haven't seen Blair GPT, we don't know what this new AI he's got to roll out is. But yeah, suspiciously, ID cards will be the answer. But I do think they will try and get tough on immigration to try and fend off the populist threat.
Yeah.
You know, it's the Tory wets haven't grasped this, but as you say, Reform have grasped it, and weirdly Blair has grasped it. And he talked about Starmer's 5 missions, and it's not pledges now, it's missions. Rishi had pledges, which is growth, NHS, crime, education, clean energy, but that's all kind of fluff to me. But he did have a funny line about Lib Dems, Blair, in this piece. He said that what Liberal Democrats want, other than good things, is frequently a bit of a mystery. That was pretty funny. He was pretty tough about the whole thing. He recognised that Labour had a kind of mandate, but it was a kind of fragile mandate, given the way the votes were distributed and everything. And he's sort of, you know, it's very tough Blair stuff. You've got to crack down on immigration using ID cards, and you've got to fix the things that people want to fix. But yes, I don't know how AI is the answer, really, but let's see.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess technology could save us, but I'd say robotics, you know, self-driving cars, for example, would be something that could save, really save the sort of tight labour market, and, you know, maybe reduce the need for bringing bodies into the country to do jobs.
Yeah, we'll have a robot each.
We'll have a robot each. Anyway, we've got the Sun now, and the Reform MPs are planning to enter Parliament in the style of Reservoir Dogs. I've always said that politics in the UK could be livened up with more gun battles, Nick.
Yeah, me too. It's Nigel Farage and Reform MPs plan Reservoir Dogs style show of force on first day of Parliament, so the memes are going to be amazing. And I'm not really sure what that means. It just means that 5 of them are going to come in there and mess stuff up and get involved and cause a nuisance. It says gloating Reform sources also revealed a hit list of nearly 90 Labour seats they will target next. And a Reform UK party source said the foxes are in their hen house now. There's not that many people in Reform, so basically that's Farage or Lee Anderson that said that.
Because there's all those chickens.
Oh no, I just mean
a few.
I just mean when it says sources, it's like which of the 5 was it? You know what I mean? You know, and I know most of them. Was it Ben? Was it?
Show the silhouette like they do in Panorama.
Yeah.
To work it out.
Exactly. But yeah, they're saying we've shown we can win in the Red Wall. We're now second in more than 80 of their seats, so they are coming. So it is very like Reservoir Dogs. Hopefully they'll play the soundtrack as they walk in. Doom, 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 doom. All in sunglasses. I'd like to see them.
He's very unapologetic, isn't he, Nigel? That's his brand.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, it's a great point that they came second to Labour in 87 seats, which is incredible. So, you know, with a few % more.
That's what he said. We're coming for Labour's vote. That's his next plan.
And Reform, you know, a lot of their talking points really appeal to certainly the old traditional Labour base.
Yeah, absolutely.
It says he's going to be a permanent nuisance in the House of Commons, which will be exciting. But I think mainly Farage has played that down and said he's focused on building the party, you know, as a whole infrastructure. That's what they really need to do, rather than just. It'll be fun to see him have a pop at Starmer in the Commons, like he used to do in the European Parliament. Yeah. But the most important thing is to make it a professional party and do all the boring stuff you have to do.
Yeah, absolutely. OK, well, the Independent now with Suella warning the Tories that the Reform Party poses a threat to their existence. Yeah, I think they might have worked that out already. Cressida, tell us more.
Yeah, I don't think this is from a month ago. This is a current article. Braverman warns Tory party will cease to exist unless it neutralises Farage and Reform. Neutralises them. It's like something that happens in one of those Oda advert things, you know, like...
Yeah,
what does that mean? Febreze them out. So, yeah, she's acknowledged all the failures. There's a few Tories doing this at the moment, saying, yes, look, we didn't do a very good job. She's talking about immigration. She's saying we didn't deliver on that. We said we would cut immigration, but we just didn't do it. She's in this kind of reflective phase. She was interviewed this morning, and she wouldn't talk about leadership. She's very much sort of like, we don't need to discuss that right now. We've got some thinking to do about what we've done. And that's just the tone of this. Then Robert Jenrick saying similar things, talking about what they didn't deliver. Danny Kruger of the New Conservatives talking about lacking competence. There's just a lot of this kind of reflective stuff. But none of it's very glamorous.
Yeah. Nick, I mean, there's talk that Reform have split the right's vote. So, you know, the Conservatives lost because there's another right-wing party to vote for. But, I mean, this has been the left's problem all the way through. Like for decades, we had in the 80s, Thatcher won because the SDP split the vote from Labour, and now the Lib Dems split the sort of left-wing progressive vote from Labour. So it's kind of unfair to say that this is a new thing and a unique problem for the Conservatives.
No, you're right. Maybe the new thing is that it's on the Conservative side, which hasn't been for a while. But yeah, the future is really split throughout, isn't it? Because Labour is still going to be split. I mean, they've squeaked through, really. I know they've won a lot of seats, but they're going to be split very soon. You've got the Owen Jones wing off voting Green and stuff like that. Yeah. Conservatives are split. But yeah, clearly reform had a massive impact. And Suella, it was a great interview. Go and watch it with Camilla on GB News. And it's just, she's very honest about what went wrong, and that is very important. I'm sort of Team Suella, really, because she said she was listening to people on the doorstep. It's not that complicated. They say, look, immigration, taxes, the trans thing, the things that Suella was highlighting, we didn't cut immigration. We said we would. It went up. Yeah. Taxes weren't cut, and children were mutilated. It's quite good that she keeps pushing that point, because it is insane what's happened on that issue, and people don't talk about it that much. So she said, look, all these things happen on our watch, and so and she said she didn't want to throw anyone under the bus, but she did slightly throw Rishi under the bus, because
she did sort of say, well, there's a bus over there, and it's to have somebody thrown under it.
She didn't throw many people under, but she did mention that Rishi wouldn't go with her recommendations on immigration. Yeah. That's the one. I suppose if he's already kind of gone, so maybe she doesn't mind having a quick pop at Rishi.
Robert Jenrick said a similar thing. He said, the Tories said on immigration that we would do whatever it takes, but we clearly didn't do whatever it takes because it didn't happen.
Yeah. And Jenrick's sort of saying the same things in a slightly more slick way. So he'll be the choice of some people, and apparently Kruger's backing him. Danny Kruger's one of the few people that did hold on to his seat. I'm gutted that Miriam Cates lost, but anyway, let's see.
OK, well, we've got the Daily Mail now, and Keir Starmer pledged to clean up politics. So he's appointed someone to the House of Lords who put porn films on their taxpayer-funded expenses, Nick.
Yes, it's what anyone would do. It's Sir Keir Starmer hands peerage to expenses scandal former Labour cabinet minister who said disgraced people should not go to the Lords, and this is ex-Home Secretary Jackie Smith, who admitted that to a certain extent she had been disgraced, which is incredible. Yeah. But there she is anyway. She charged taxpayers for 2 porn films, not 1, but 2. You think you learn your lesson the first time.
Wild night. Pace, does she not have a mobile phone? Does she not have a tablet? No internet connection? I mean, what on earth?
This is the good
1970s.
This is the good stuff, Leo.
Someone turns a zoetrope and there's a little horse galloping along. I mean, come on.
This isn't your little porn. This is Waitrose.
Oh, God. They want it to seem old-fashioned because they're all inexperienced, aren't they, Labour now? They want somebody that's had good grounding in an expenses scandal in the past. Give some
to show them how to fill the form.
Yes, exactly.
So her ex-husband later confessed to watching it, and she also wrongly designated her sister's home as her main home for commons allowances. So the Rayner playbook. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, Rayner's got away with whatever she did. This person's now going to get a peerage. Starmer's not going to clean up anything at all, is he? He's just going to get away with more because he's Starmer, because he's on the left.
And she's returning as education minister as well, so it's good. Right. She's setting the moral standard for teachers.
And she's a real Blair hire as well. She was from the Blair era. Blair's back pulling all the strings. We know this. And Starmer's going to get an easy ride from the media. He's like a one-man lockdown. He'll get the easiest possible. You know how lockdown just got an easier ride of it. Oh, why can't you lock down more? With Starmer, all the journalist questions will be like, Keir, why are you so amazing? That'll be just all the questions.
They'll be clapping him while he eats an ice cream.
It's disgusting.
Like Joe Biden all over.
Yeah, exactly. He'll just come up and say, as you can see, today is Wednesday. Oh, it's amazing. It's going to be like that for years. It's disgusting. Sorry.
OK, well, as a taxpayer, that's exactly what I want my money spent on. Politicians' husbands watching pornography. Anyway, that's it for part 2, but coming up, Nigel Farage takes over TikTok and the NHS isn't taking fat people seriously. See you in a couple of minutes.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you.
That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
You'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes, she could have said stump.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got the Daily Mail now, and move over, Kim Kardashian. There's a new social media influencer in town, and his name's Nigel Farage. Nick?
Yes, he's down with the kids. Nigel Farage is seeking to cash in on, that's not my mistake, Gen Z youthquake after bragging about Reform's dominance on social media in the election, with his party enjoying a rapidly growing under-18 fan base. So, yeah, Farage just says something's happening out there, something remarkable, because he says it's unlike anything he's seen with the Brexit Party or UKIP. They've never had this youthquake, which comes from TikTok. And we've kind of seen it before. I mean, for a start, Labour will be scrapping that 16-year-old voting thing as soon as they're aware of this.
Banning TikTok.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or they'll just let 16-year-old women vote, because this is all young lads, basically, that love Farage. And they don't have the stigma that the normie centrist dad 40-year-old has. Oh, Farage is bad, he's all right-wing, because they don't have any.
I've heard this is something to do with racism.
Yeah.
I heard that somebody said it on Facebook, and now I'm scared.
Right, and they remember, like, the Romanian thing. They remember Farage and all the sort of smears against him, whereas these young lads just see like a...
Seeing him in the jungle, not
fun guy, mad lad.
It's very full of riz, I believe that's the term.
Tons of riz.
He's very calm. I mean, a lot of young boys, they haven't been allowed to see any functioning men of late, so it's like no wonder they're just transfixed. You know, what is this?
That's true,
Bear Grylls has been banned. You're not allowed to be a scout anymore, so you see a competent man and they must just fall in love with him.
Here's a man who's not crying, he's not putting on lipstick. What's this all about? This is something to aspire to. And also, I mean, young people, the interviews that I've seen with them, and the comments I've seen on, my videos and, videos by Lotus Eaters and people like that, there's a lot of young people, well, men mostly, there's a lot of young people who see the sort of injustice and see through all the... I mean, they haven't been indoctrinated yet. They don't have that fear yet of losing their job because they're called racist because they like the wrong thing on social media.
Well,
so
and they still want to be rebellious at that. It's the Andrew Tate factor, sorry to mention him, but it's that thing of, if your teacher doesn't like it and you're 15 or 16 or 17, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good way to wind your mum up.
Yeah, who'd have thought being slightly right of centre, which is what I call it, would be, the punk rock.
Yeah. No, wokeness is going to be completely lame to teenage boys. The only question is, will they vote? A lot of them are too young to vote. Yeah. Will they remember to vote? Like, oh, I like Farage, and actually go to the little place and put with the pencil. It's different from just watching a TikTok video.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Trump 2016, similar energy, but they've got to actually vote.
They're not going to be voting yet.
No.
But
I'm saying, will they...
Isn't it?
Yeah, no.
5 years' time.
But will they remember by then? Will they become actual Farage voters? That's what we've got yet to see.
Will there be a new social media influencer?
Yeah, it's going to be me.
Nixon goes into politics. We've got The Guardian now, and Labour's Clacton candidate, who said he was running for every black and brown person in the UK and wants to drink white man's tears, has accused Nigel Farage of being racially divisive. Cressida.
Oh, Labour candidate defeated by Farage reveals safety fears during campaign. He's talking about safety. I don't want to hear it. So this is Jovan Owusu-Napul, who's 27, so he's quite a young guy. He's the Labour candidate in Clacton, so obviously he lost to Farage. And this is a piece in The Guardian where he's saying things like, I had people tear up my leaflets. And you do think, well, it's politics, darling. It's like, you know, you get comedians that sort of say, oh, it wasn't very nice and I had to get a taxi very late at night. You're like, maybe it's not for you. Maybe you should go into knitting.
Yeah, buy a car.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying it's OK to be racist. Obviously it isn't. But he talks about a torrent of abuse on social media. And I think...
No, the only thing I want to push back on is, like, try being on GB News. Like, I've got entire organisations writing hit pieces on me, and I'm not even famous. Like, I get the worst of all worlds. Like, I'm going to cancel this guy. Everyone's like, who? It's horrible. But, and it's a serious point, because Farage is getting milkshaked, and this guy's like, people were mean. It's like, did they throw anything in your face, though?
Yes,
no.
cement. Did they chuck cement at your tour, at your bus? Maybe Labour didn't pay for him to have a
Well, he's missing an opportunity, because we've seen Farage getting heckled, and he turns it into a win, doesn't it? Because he's kind of good-natured about it, even the cement, all of it. And if you do this, I don't think it's going to help his case.
And Nick, also, I feel that the left have used, really racially divisive language. I mean, this guy, he's spoken about, joked about wanting to drink white man's tears, which, might be funny for this generation, but, if you flip the races and said it, if you said it in 10 years' time, anti-white racism probably won't be acceptable then.
Well,
so
depends how it goes.
Because we'll all be probably illegal. It'll be illegal to be white. We'll be running around in.
Push back on that.
It's well, let's be clear. Someone put a post saying something about anti-white tears. He replied, "My favourite drink." So maybe he was joking. If we're going to be very fair, but I do agree with your point. We were joking before, but it is horrible for people to be. I don't want people to be abused, or especially not have milkshakes thrown at them and things like this. But I think you're right that the left pushed this for a long time. Antifa, certain other extremist groups kind of pushed the envelope on this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So now it's bound to make the whole atmosphere more, volatile.
So when other people do the exact same thing that they've been doing, they're suddenly, oh, but that's racist. And it's like, yeah, you were being racist.
Yeah,
so,
although he is very stylish, this guy.
He's very stylish, yes.
Fashionable guy.
And he seems like a very charismatic guy, so, maybe he's got a strong future in politics.
Or on TikTok.
We've got the Times now, and good news, Nick. State-educated plebs like us have the power now. That's nice.
Oh, that's nice. I know no one's told me, but apparently it's arrived. So is the era of posh boy dominance really over? If it is, it's too late for you, Emilio. But it's basically this idea we keep hearing now that the new Labour cabinet is just filled with people from a Charles Dickens novel who left school at 12 and, went up a chimney or something.
And so they crow about, Angela Rayner was pregnant when she was 16, as if that's a grand achievement rather than just something that people did at my school.
Yeah, so it's not a good thing necessarily, but she came back from university is the point. But the thing is, one thing that annoys me is when Liz Truss was the first comprehensive school Prime Minister, they were like, no, she wasn't. Theresa May became a comprehensive... And it wasn't a good thing then. Now it's an amazing, great thing because they're on the left. I'm kind of torn because I said the other night, I think probably life was better when we were ruled by 10 posh blokes who never had a single meal that didn't still have shot in it, because every meal they ate was killed by someone in a red coat, and they ate a grouse, and that was their breakfast.
I'd agree with that. The custodians of the land.
Yeah, I had no power, but I still don't.
You don't want plebs to have any power because they'll just... People like
they don't know how to rule.
Throw the system, and we want to.
We don't know how to rule.
We don't like their posh bourgeois dogs, so we go and kill. I was trying to say, is it borzoi? It sounded like I was saying bourgeois. The Russian aristocracy had these fancy-looking dogs.
No one knows what you mean.
They were killed by the communists because they looked too fancy.
Okay. What? So
that was
you don't want...
Answer the question.
Who are you, Simon Evans? No one knows what you're talking about.
I don't like the Eton Steps picture. I don't want to live in a world where people don't have a chance. There's nothing wrong with...
Oh, so you don't want to go back to Britain when it was actually great?
No,
you want to live in a Soviet Union state, satellite state.
Yes, that's what I want. You've outed me.
Why don't you move to... I was going to say move to France. Why don't you stay in Britain?
A couple of things, though. It's the left that got rid of grammar schools, right? And they got rid of social mobility. Yeah. So that's what it's really about. They're going to tax private schools. They hate meritocracy. And the elite will still survive. I mean, it'll be the children of Rachel Reeves and so on. That'll be the new elite, And also, the elite never goes away. It's just now we have the woke Ivy League. That's still there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we've got the Independent now with landlords making rules that sound impossible to enforce, Cressida.
The worrying trend of landlords banning tenants from working from home. How do they do it? Apparently this is really common now. In what appears to be a new trend, adverts for shared homes have been appearing specifying that the potential new occupant must not work from home. Which just sounds insane. I mean, how does the landlord know what you're up to?
I understand why this is now. It's shared homes, so they want to make sure, because there'll be 19 people staying in there, so they want to make sure that the one bathroom that they've got doesn't get, too crowded with people.
I think it's people who probably are suffering in the cost of living crisis and can't pay their mortgage, and so they want to get somebody in, but not that much.
Right.
They just want the money, but they'd like them to go out.
Oh, like those adverts you get, it would be ideal for somebody who's just here during the week.
Yeah.
And then goes somewhere else
exactly.
at the
There's
weekend.
actually one that says more or less.
Yeah. But that's because it's lodging. I mean, to be very fair to that person, it sounds like that's a sort of lodging. It's someone already living in the property. It sounds more like a lodging thing. But yeah, obviously it's insane. I mean, because everyone's working all the time now, right? There's no line between work. I'm working every minute or not working. It's exactly the same thing. How can you not work from home?
You're allowed to read your emails.
Right. I mean, yeah, where's the line between work, everyone's working from home?
I had a landlord once when I was a student who said, no double beds in this house. It encourages guests.
I know what that's trying to stop. Anyway, we've got The Guardian now with concerns that the NHS don't take obesity seriously enough. This is a bit rich coming from The Guardian, which spends most of its time telling us that land whales are stunning and brave, Nick.
Which they are, for balance. Much of NHS...
One. They're always...
Yeah.
Risky job.
Much of NHS in England does not take obesity seriously enough, as you said, and basically it's the old integrated care boards, ICBs to you and me, Leo, and they're not to look Cressida though. They're regional groupings of NHS trusts, of course, and they've not made any effort to tackle obesity. And everyone's saying, "What are you doing? This is the main problem." I suppose the question is how you tackle it. I mean, I suggest fining people for being too fat.
About lack of funding for bariatric surgery and all that, and then finally towards the end it does say. That actually it's about preventing obesity first before worrying about Ozempic prescriptions and all this madness.
Yeah.
I'm so glad my mum gave me broccoli when I was a kid. Imagine.
Yeah.
That was the Ozempic of the 1980s.
Yeah, no, bullying was the Ozempic of when I grew up. I mean, I got bullied for being overweight at school. It's horrible, but I do advocate fines for anyone that's overweight, including me. I sometimes get too overweight. I should be fined.
I mean, that's a great idea, because if fat people have less money, they'll have less money to spend on ice cream.
Yeah.
So it works.
But you need the stick and the carrot.
Yeah.
But we need a carrot, literally, would be nice.
We need a carrot.
But what's the stick going to be,
Well, being fat.
The stick is, look at that carrot.
Well, no, but it's not, because everyone's obese, so it's 2/3 of people are overweight, so it's obviously not working, is it?
Yeah.
We need more sticks and more carrots.
We've obviously eradicated poverty a bit too much. We need to somehow fine-tune, just get the balance right with the pot, so people have, just enough poverty that they can't eat that much food, because people always say, "Oh, it's actually very expensive to eat healthily," and
it's not the money, though, is it?
Poor people's foods have got more calories. And it's like, well, if you eat less of that food, it's not going to cost you more, is it?
It is incredibly hard to eat less, isn't it? I often try it myself. It is hard because it's uncomfortable.
And this is my Orwell point. He said in The Road to Wigan Pier, he's looking at the poor people spending all their money on sugary tea in those days, and he's like, look, they've got nothing else. And if you're having a rubbish time...
Yeah, that's like my life.
Twixes is going to help.
Yeah, it's all I have.
How things have changed. And sugar actually, spurred the Industrial Revolution on, because it did give people more energy and it allowed them to work longer. So, yeah, and... it's interesting. But that's part 3 nailed, but coming up in the final section, the youngest MP and civil servants are told to hide their left-wing bias. See you in a couple of minutes.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Question is... should our museums stay free for everyone and anyone, or should we be charging our tourists?
So many of the artifacts are from around the world, stolen actually. I think it's almost to add insult to injury to ask people to pay to see the artifacts that were taken without their permission. One of the things that the museum set itself up for is a kind of world heritage where you can see the stuff they took from your country free of charge, because the British state's willing to do that. Is one of the reasons why we hold on to many of the artifacts from around the world instead of giving them back.
I mean, that's a noble argument, Wayman, but none of the other countries in the world that also contain artefacts from all over the world indulge in that, do they? We still have to pay to see anything that's come from the UK that might be overseas?
No, but the absolute truth is that we've stolen a lot more over many more years than anybody else, because we're we had a very, very big empire, and during that time, taking things from other countries without their permission
And I think our wonderful country, the United Kingdom, is the cradle of modern civilization, not of the ancient world, but of the modern world. You know, for centuries, we've contributed things to the world which has spread out around the world, and the influence that we've put upon countries around the globe has been massively significant. I think it's a privilege for people to be able to come to this country and track the history of our country through our museums. I can't understand why they've ever been free. The upkeep of museums runs into hundreds of millions of pounds a year. Somebody's got to maintain them and keep them good. Somebody's got to go around the world and collect the artifacts which are in our museums. And I've always had the adage in life, if something is free, it's probably not worth having.
The People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes and Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got the Daily Mail now. And is it just me or are MPs getting younger, Cressida?
Westminster's new baby of the House hits back. Sam Carling, 22, who's now the UK's youngest MP, dismisses claims he doesn't have real-world experience and asks why critics think being older makes you better at the job. Well, he's 22. He's very young, and he says no one's been able to explain to me yet why being older makes you better. But for a 20...
I can tell him.
What would you tell him?
Because you've had more time doing the job.
No,
Sam.
it's called life experience and a prefrontal cortex. They're the two main ones. You don't even develop that till you're 25.
Absolutely, especially in a man.
Yes, but he's been doing lots of things. I've done quite a lot for my age as well. I don't know how he speaks. I just imagine it like that.
That's it.
He's been a councillor for a couple of years.
Like councillor, what kind? With an E or with an I?
With an eye. He's been
Right.
He's been
so
spending
another
other
type of
people's...
politician. So essentially a useless parasite.
Well, how can he be useless? He's been responsible for about £17 million of public money.
Well, that's a tiny fraction. That's 0.0001% of what Labour are going to waste.
Look, good luck to him.
He is Labour.
I wish him the best, but he shouldn't be an MP. He's too young. I'm not going to listen to a 22-year-old. It's absurd. By the same token, boomers are at fault as well. They're complacent. They hogged all the money. Zennials are the only people I listen to or trust.
Boomers like this show.
Zennial?
It's on that cusp between Gen X and millennial. It's basically people like me and a few others.
What am I?
You're Gen X, actually.
Am I?
Yeah, I'm millennial, technically. Yeah, because I'm younger. I'm a lot younger than you.
You're getting old now.
Yeah. But Zennial, but I'm a sort of a Zennial because I'm right on the first bit. So they're the greatest people. They're the greatest generation.
Right. You sounded like Trump.
Great people. So I trust the but I don't. But 22 is too young. Come on. It's just you can't really listen to anything when someone younger than you tells you something. Don't you just ignore it?
And also people. Young people are always idealistic and ideological. Like you see it in the SNP, they've got these like young, or they had before they were all chucked out. Anyway, I better move on to the next story. We've got the Daily Mail again, and civil servants have been advised to hide their blatant left-wing bias. Nick,
imagine that. Civil servants ordered to stop clapping Labour ministers so loudly to avoid the appearance of bias. Have your bias, just don't show everyone. Do you know what I mean? Don't just spread it around everywhere. I mean, you know, it's so ridiculous. Like, can you just tone it down a bit, guys? Don't tell them about the bias as if we didn't know. I mean, they're saying, you know, Rachel Reeves came in, it was a bit Taylor Swift. I mean, it was absurd, but you probably saw that video, everyone like clapping for them. To be fair, there was a similar video for Rishi leaving, so I don't know what that means. But it is pretty absurd. And then there's this idea, now they try and tone it down in the article by saying it's not that they're so competent necessarily, these new Labour people. And one example they use is that Sue Gray doesn't like anything written down. That's a bit eccentric, isn't it, in 2024? Don't write stuff down.
Who doesn't like paper trails.
The oral tradition. Yeah.
Been in court cases and seen, oh, that's how they
That's someone who's been investigated by people like Sue Gray. It's like, if I would do this to someone, what would they do to me? Don't write anything down. Sorry, Karen.
No, yes, agree, you're right. But it's not official, though. It's just...
no, it's what they say about her.
Be balanced.
OK, you got anything to say about it?
No, I think that...
We've got the Times now with a cure for stress that left me speechless, Cressida.
Heard about the cure for stress when you're not allowed to speak. This sounds like hell on earth. People are going to book clubs, rambling, meals, whole holidays where you're not allowed to speak and paying lots of money for it. It's the new thing. Apparently everybody's stressed and spending too much time in busy jobs, and so they want to go on holiday where they don't have to speak. Wouldn't you rather just go by yourself than sit in close proximity with human beings?
Well, obviously I would.
Well, obviously, yeah. You're the only person I know that would be into this.
Yeah. Well, this is just like me at home every day, just not speaking. Rory Stewart goes on them, obviously. Oh, no, he just goes on general meditation ones, though.
I think if you spend any time with Alistair Campbell, you're going to want to just sit on your own, think about your life choices.
Have you not thought about going on one of these, Cressida?
No, I've got a friend who went on some kind of silent meditation thing, and nah.
I was on the verge of doing a misogynist joke. I'm just not going to do it.
Go and do it.
I was going to say women should go to silent retreats. That's bad, isn't it? It's terrible, even by my standards.
We can just enjoy the benefit of the silent retreat.
Good thing I didn't
somebody
say
said
that.
this. There was a medical contraption in the Victorian era that women had to sit in for like 4 hours a day.
Let's bring that back.
Apparently, the doctors all knew it was just nonsense, but the husbands loved it.
Oh, I bet your wife, I bet she's got a really quiet life at home. I bet you never speak.
No, she definitely wears the trousers. Anyway, moving on, a Sun journalist tracked down the world's loneliest man. And it's not you, Nick.
It's not. I mean, I think it still is, because this guy's got bears. I don't even have the bears. World's loneliest man living in minus 70 degrees Siberian forest, 5 hours away from nearest humans with only bears for neighbours. And he has to walk 5 hours a day to reach civilization. Sounds like my dad's childhood. He was always telling me, like, oh, I had to walk miles to school. Anyway, this guy called Samuel, he lives in the Siberian forest, as we've talked about, amongst only bears. He prays to God and Jesus to get food.
Is that a new site that you can...
No, I said only, only bears, yeah, and he's on there.
Bear naked.
That's how he makes his money. He should just learn to code. I feel bad for this guy. He's on his own. His life's almost as lonely as mine, but like I say, he's got the bears, he's got the snow. And it seems like a cool guy.
Yeah.
I'm not into it. I think it looks horrific. All that hard
You lived
work.
in a boat.
I know.
This is more human. This is more like rational human.
Bears would have protected you against violent criminals in London.
You told me you didn't have a toilet and you used to make a nest in a Tesco bag and do your business in there and then lob it over the fence.
You didn't tell me that.
Obviously, that is not what happens on a narrow boat. It's not as bad.
That's on the wide boats.
It's not as good as that. No, this is horrendous. I mean, he's obviously met at least one person, a journalist, and they should have told him about the mainland. Why did he go and live there? Come and live here. I would give him a British passport tomorrow to get him out of this.
You sound like a Labour politician.
He makes me feel like a Labour politician. I want to help.
This is the kind of immigration we need. Lonely men who live amongst bears. I would welcome this guy. He's obviously got skills.
Yeah.
He's stayed alive.
He's
you
very
can stop bears from eating him. That's going to be useful in about 10 years. Anyway, the show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Monday's front pages. The Daily Mail leads with Reeves, I'll rip up rules on planning within days. The Mirror has Chancellor, I'll make every Brit better off. The Telegraph has Labour to bring back housing targets. The Eye has Labour heading for new Brexit clash with EU on extra migrants. The Times has Homes on Green Belt in new dash for growth. And the Daily Star has Drinkle, Shrinkle, Your Winkle. And those were your front pages. That's about drinking cold beer in the sunshine, in case you're wondering. Apparently it's very dangerous. And that's it for tonight's show. Thanks to Cressida and Nick. Headliners is back tomorrow at 11 p.m. I think Nick's back on it then. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, then stay tuned for breakfast. But for now, it's good night or good morning and God bless. Goodbye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, very good evening to you. This is your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. If you did get caught out in a shower earlier on today, I hope you've managed to dry off. Things are now settling down as we head throughout the rest of this evening and overnight. It's actually largely dry for many of us, clear skies across a good chunk of the UK. A few mist and fog patches possible, but really underneath those starry skies, temperatures will be plummeting down a touch. 9-11 degrees Celsius for most of our towns and cities, but rural spots may be as low as 3 to 5 degrees Celsius, which is quite chilly for the start of July. But it does mean that to start off the new working week, there will be a decent amount of sunshine for many of us. A touch cloudy for the far north of Scotland, though, particularly for the Outer Hebrides up towards the Northern Isles. A bit of cloud and patchy rain and drizzle around. But for inland areas of Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England, quite a decent start off to Monday. We will see some showers developing later on in the morning and towards the afternoon, though. Further south, though, our attention is on this band of rain that's slowly pushing its way in from the southwest, providing light rain and drizzle for southwest England and eventually southwest Wales, central areas during the day and the afternoon. But it is going to turn increasingly cloudy, gloomy underneath all of that. Some quite brisk winds developing as well around the southwest peninsula, 30 to 35 mile-an-hour gusts. Feeling quite chilly and cool underneath that persistent cloud. Temperatures not rising much higher than 15 to 17 degrees Celsius. But further north, where you do have that sunshine, 19, 21 degrees Celsius.